It is like a universally acknowledged truth that love is allegedly blind.
Allegedly.
Right. Allegedly. But honestly, if you look at the sheer unhinged state of modern romance right now, love isn't just blind, it is completely chaotic.
Oh, totally.
It is entirely confusing, deeply financially irresponsible, and somehow constantly finding new, highly innovative ways to absolutely embarrass every single person involved.
Literally every single one of us.
Like whether someone is on reality television wearing a mic pack and, a neon bikini, or you are literally just sitting on your couch swiping through a dating app on a random Tuesday night, love will humble you.
It'll destroy you.
It will make an absolute clown out of you, and it will leave you staring at the ceiling, wondering exactly how you arrived at this specific point in your life.
It's fascinating because, it's not just that love is blind. It seems to lack, basic object permanence.
Wait, yeah.
It operates with zero sense of direction. Functionally, modern dating is like watching someone walk into a sliding glass door over and over again. Except now, millions of people are watching and judging those life choices through the lens of a television screen. Or, a digital algorithm.
Exactly. And the psychological mechanisms behind why we just keep walking into that glass door, that is exactly what we are going to unpack today.
I am so ready.
But first, babes, welcome back. We love you. We see you. And, babes, we hope you have an amazing week. Cheers. I have to say, the margaritas are officially on deck. And, babes, they are absolutely amazing. I deeply needed this decompression ritual today.
Same.
There's something about sitting down to analyze human delusion that absolutely requires a salted rim.
Okay, wait. We need to establish a scientific baseline here, though. We've been debating this all week, and I firmly believe there is a correct approach to this ritual.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Now, listen. A margarita on the rocks is, from a thermodynamics perspective, essentially just tequila-flavored water after 10 minutes of conversation.
That is just not true.
It is. The frozen margarita is the superior, scientifically sound, and frankly only valid choice. It maintains its temperature, it holds its structural integrity, and it doesn't dilute the acidity of the lime while we are talking.
I understand the physics you are presenting, but I completely reject your reality.
Wow.
Because a frozen margarita inevitably gives you brain freeze right at the exact moment you are trying to passionately articulate a point.
Okay.
That is a serious occupational hazard for us when we are, deep in the trenches of analyzing these social dynamics. Furthermore, a rocks margarita is structurally elegant. It communicates a certain level of, sophisticated restraint.
Sophisticated restraint.
Yes. And we have to talk about the real architectural issue here, which is the rim. If you are drinking a sugar-rimmed margarita, you've essentially ordered a movie theater slushie.
Ew! No, I agree with that.
Right. Salt is mandatory. It balances the acid. It provides flavor architecture that cuts through the sweetness of the agave.
I will concede the point on the salt. The sodium counteracts the bitterness of the tequila, which is a necessary flavor bridge. Salt is non-negotiable. But I will remain steadfast on my frozen hill.
You enjoy your slushie.
I will.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, the temperature is secondary to the function. We are using this to transition from our highly clinical day jobs into a space where we can actually dissect the messy reality of how people interact.
Which brings up my working philosophy. The first margarita is basic self-care.
Obviously.
It's hydration.
Yeah.
It's the transitionary mechanism to wash away the clinical emails and the stress of the day. But the second margarita, that is mandatory character development.
Mandatory.
You simply do not access the deep, messy, honest truths of the universe on one beverage. You need that second one to really lower your inhibitions enough to look at the sheer absurdity of human nature.
It lowers the cognitive dissonance just enough to make the chaos palatable. Like the first drink allows you to tolerate the baseline existence of other people in society. The second drink is where the critical analysis truly begins. And considering it is currently Monday, you're going to need that character development. We all are. Because navigating the world right now requires a heavy buffer.
Speaking of navigating the world, before we get into the absolute disaster class of human mating rituals happening in the villa, we have to look at the psychological battlefield of our actual real-world day jobs.
Oh, God. The dentist diaries.
Dentist diaries. Because people assume dentistry is just this mechanical process of fixing cavities and recommending flossing. They don't realize it is an intense, captive audience sociological experiment.
It is entirely about power dynamics and vulnerability. You have a patient in a highly vulnerable physical position, entirely reliant on you, which strips away their usual social defenses.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are the ones in control, and sometimes, psychologically speaking, we become the literal hostages of whatever's on their mind.
Hostages is the perfect word. Let me walk you through my low of the week, which was profoundly awkward but fascinating from a behavioral standpoint. So I had this very sweet elderly patient. I am in the middle of a complex, ridiculously long, deep cleaning appointment. I have sharp mirrors in her mouth. I am highly focused on the clinical task at hand.
Right.
And for 45 solid minutes, she utilizes every single micro break in the procedure to try and set me up with her supposedly perfect grandson.
Wait, while you are actively holding sharp instruments near her gum line.
Yes. The sheer disregard for clinical safety in the pursuit of matchmaking was staggering.
That is wild.
She's giving me his resume between suctions, like he's 32, he has a fully vested 401k, he owns a golden retriever, and I am trying to maintain professional boundaries, saying, ma'am, please keep your jaw open, I'm holding a scaler.
She was not deterred.
Not at all. Her persistence was relentless. She literally pulled out her smartphone with her free hand, holding it up near the dental light to show me his LinkedIn profile while I was trying to isolate a molar.
Oh my God.
It felt like an impromptu, high-stakes episode of a dating show, but I was wearing medical scrubs and a face shield.
That is a brilliant example of generational differences in assessing partner value, though. Think about it.
How so?
She didn't offer you his emotional intelligence or his communication style. She gave you the baseline mid-century markers of stability age, financial security, and a socially acceptable pet.
Wait, that is so true.
Did you actually look at the LinkedIn profile?
I mean, human curiosity took over. I glanced at the screen.
Yeah.
He had multiple endorsements for corporate synergy and agile team building.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right. I immediately recognized that this was not a man who could handle the emotional depth of a serious relationship, so I politely declined the offer.
Good call.
It was absurd. But it highlights how people desperately want to play matchmaker to exert some control over an uncontrollable world. But what about you? What was the breakdown of social order in your practice this week?
Okay, my chaos was entirely self-inflicted. And an incredible lesson in the fragility of the professional veneer.
I am scared.
You know the standard waiting room playlist, right? It is usually heavily curated, gentle acoustic covers of popular songs.
Right. It's the dentist lobby core aesthetic. It's sonic anesthesia.
Precisely. It projects a very specific, you are safe and not about to experience a root canal energy. Well, earlier that morning, before any patients arrived, I had my personal phone connected to the Bluetooth speaker in the back office.
Oh.
I was listening to my own music to wake up. I completely forgot to sever the Bluetooth connection when the clinic opened.
No.
Cut to 10:30 a.m. The waiting room is at maximum capacity. Patients are reading magazines, filling out medical history forms, and my phone, sitting in my pocket, automatically resumes the last track I was playing.
Oh, this is a nightmare scenario. Please tell me it wasn't an intensely personal audio diary.
In some ways, it was worse. It was the most explicit, bass-heavy, unapologetically filthy rap playlist you can possibly imagine.
Oh, my God.
It wasn't just loud, it was aggressively inappropriate. And it was broadcasting directly into a room full of suburban mothers and retired individuals. Because of the soundproofing in my operatory, I didn't realize what was happening for a solid 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
3 minutes. The only reason I found out was because my hygienist sprinted into my room looking completely pale, as if she had just witnessed a violent crime. I had inadvertently become the office DJ, and my set list completely shattered the illusion of clinical sterility.
I am genuinely stunned by the audacity of the universe to let that play for 3 minutes.
Yep.
The social contract of the waiting room was entirely breached.
Utterly destroyed.
I would have immediately handed in my resignation and moved to a new city, like packed my bags, done.
The psychology of the aftermath was what fascinated me, though. I walked out there to apologize, and the patients were mostly in shock. But one older gentleman just looked at me and very sincerely noted that the track had a robust beat.
Okay, we love him.
Right. But it completely derailed the schedule because the random conversations you have to have with patients to rebuild that professional trust and smooth over the awkwardness, those take significantly longer than the actual dental appointments.
Oh, 100%. You are doing immediate psychological damage control.
Exactly.
It is a phenomenal reminder that the professional mask we wear can slip at literally any moment. But speaking of psychological damage control, the one thing keeping my brain occupied outside of work is our joint sociological experiment.
Ah, yes. Returning to the dating apps.
We made the pact last week, and I just need to remind everyone listening, Dabes, the men out there are still absolutely feral.
Feral is almost too generous.
Yeah.
It is an unmoderated landscape of hyper-reality and gamified deception.
It really is.
Let me present my data point for the week, because I experienced a spectacular textbook case of getting catfished, and the mechanics of it were just fascinating.
I have been waiting to unpack this all day. Walk me through the exact anatomy of the disaster.
Okay, so it started with a visual presentation. The profile photos were immaculate. They presented a man who looked like a high-end catalog model, but the images were carefully interspersed with photos of him rescuing stray animals and reading literature.
Oh, a classic trap.
Highly curated to appeal to the female gaze, projecting both physical dominance and emotional vulnerability. It was perfect, but just flawed enough not to immediately trigger the AI-generated alarm bells in my brain. So we match, and the communication begins.
Okay, so what was the first structural crack in the facade? When did the red flags actually start waving?
The linguistic shift was the primary indicator. Initially, the messages were brief, utilizing the classic distancing mechanism like, I travel extensively for work, my schedule is incredibly demanding.
Right, a standard opening move to lower expectations.
Exactly, lowering expectations regarding availability.
Yeah.
But then, the actual syntax began to degrade. The tone shifted from casual contemporary banter to something resembling a poorly translated 19th century romantic script.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he sent a message that literally read, I am longing for your sweet presence on this evening.
No.
Yes, the dissonance was immediate. Nobody communicates with that specific cadence on a modern dating app.
It sounds like you matched with a Victorian ghost who is haunting a server farm. Or a scammer operating out of a basement using a bad translation app.
It was algorithmic romance speak. But I wanted absolute confirmation, so I initiated a stress test. I insisted on a FaceTime call to verify his identity.
Oh, power move. What happened?
He answers, and the cameras is immediately pointed directly at the ceiling. A disembodied voice claims, my front camera's broken, the lens is shattered and blurry.
Such a classic evasion tactic.
Classic. So I employed a simple countermeasure. I told him to walk to a mirror and point the rear camera at his reflection.
Oh, the mirror test. That is brilliant. What was his immediate reaction?
Panic. The digital connection miraculously and instantaneously failed.
Shocking.
3 minutes later, I received a text claiming he'd been suddenly called into a mandatory emergency corporate meeting.
Wait, at what time?
At 9 p.m. on a Thursday evening.
The sheer, unmitigated audacity of that lie, the lack of respect for your basic intelligence is just staggering.
It's not about respect, it's about a numbers game. They rely on the target's desire for connection to override their critical thinking. I subsequently ran a reverse image search on the profile pictures and discovered they belonged to a prominent fitness influencer based in Brazil.
Oh my God.
I was essentially communicating with a digital ghost. It is a fascinating exercise in digital deception, but on a personal level, it actively depletes your life force.
It completely drains your emotional reserves. And it is so interesting you mentioned the desire for connection overriding critical thinking, because my update is the exact inverse of your situation, and it has triggered a profound psychological crisis for me.
Do tell.
I actually connected with a guy who appears to be entirely normal, like too normal.
And in the current landscape, extreme normalcy is the most terrifying red flag of all.
Exactly. It completely short-circuits your brain. Finding a genuinely kind, communicative, normal person on a dating app is like walking down a dark alleyway and finding a pristine, authentic, fully certified Chanel bag sitting next to a dumpster.
Oh, wow.
Right, yes. For a fleeting microsecond, you are thrilled, but your immediate overriding neurological response is threat detection. You instantly assume this item is stolen property, this is an elaborate sting operation, or there is a literal explosive device hidden inside.
Your brain refuses to accept that something of high value would just be discarded in the trash.
Exactly.
That is a phenomenal analogy for modern dating anxiety. So, what is your analytical hypothesis? What is the hidden defect you are anticipating?
Okay, my working theory is that he is either an undercover criminal operative actively enrolled in a federal witness protection program, or he has a secret wife and 3 children hidden in a suburban cul-de-sac.
You are spiraling.
I am. But the data points are deeply suspicious. He asks me follow-up questions about my day. He actively remembers minor details from previous conversations. He has not sent a single unsolicited, inappropriate photograph.
Revolutionary.
He is employed in the financial sector, yet he has not once attempted to explain cryptocurrency to me.
Okay, that actually is suspicious.
See, It is absolutely terrifying because it violates every established pattern of the platform.
You do realize that you have allowed the baseline standard for human behavior to drop so low that it is virtually subterranean, right?
Maybe.
You are currently experiencing intense paranoia simply because a man is displaying fundamental human decency.
But that is exactly my point. Our perception of human behavior has been completely warped. And honestly, I blame our deep immersion into reality television for this.
Oh, absolutely.
Watching shows like Love Island has permanently dismantled my ability to trust a green flag. I look at a green flag now and I don't see safety. I see a red flag that has been hastily painted green, and I am just waiting for the paint to chip off.
The paint always chips off.
Always. It forces you to question whether genuine, transparent people actually exist in these gamified environments, or if every single person is just running an elaborate psychological algorithm to secure a favorable outcome.
It is a valid fear. We have been conditioned to expect the pivot, the betrayal, or the hidden agenda. But listen, if you think our personal dating lives are a complex web of paranoia and deception, they pale in comparison to the absolute sociological disaster class currently taking place in the villa.
Oh, don't even get me started.
The behavior we are seeing in Fiji makes my Brazilian catfish look like a saint.
It truly does. Babes, enough about our dating disasters. Let's get into everyone else's dating disasters. Let's pivot our focus, grab our drinks, and get into this recap. We are going to extract the absolute madness of what happens when you put highly attractive, emotionally dysregulated people into a pressure cooker and tell them to find love.
Let's begin by analyzing the immediate fallout from the previous night's blowout argument between Melanie and Beatriz. This is a perfect case study in how two different personality types manage conflict in a high-stakes environment.
Oh, so messy.
We pick up the morning after, and the social fabric of the villa is completely fractured.
The emotional stakes are incredibly high right out of the gate. We observe Melanie retreating to the makeup room, and she is having a severe emotional breakdown. Like, she is actively sobbing.
Right.
She feels entirely overwhelmed and deeply attacked by the tone Beatriz used the night before when confronting her about monopolizing the new bombshell, Corbin. And simultaneously, we see Beatriz outside debriefing with Trinity, completely unbothered, stating firmly, "I said what I meant."
The contrast is striking. There is zero retraction from Beatriz and no attempt to soften the blow.
And looking at this from an empathetic perspective, I really understand Melanie's reaction here. Have you ever been in a situation where you are so frustrated, so incapable of matching someone else's aggressive verbal energy that your body just defaults to crying?
I mean, yes, biological overwhelm is a real thing.
Melanie explicitly stated she was trying to maintain her composure. She didn't want to scream, so the emotional overflow just manifested as tears. I strongly feel that Beatrice's delivery was unnecessarily hostile. Yes. Looking at another adult woman and telling her to correct her behavior. That language is incredibly condescending. It completely lacked any sense of sisterhood or peer-to-peer respect.
Okay, I see your point regarding the emotional toll. But analytically, I have to defend Beatrice's fundamental logic here.
Defend it.
Let's strip away the emotion and look at the behavioral facts. The entire group was engaged in a collective conversation to assess the new arrival, Corbin. Melanie made a highly unilateral, selfish decision to interrupt that group dynamic and extract him for a private interaction.
Which is the name of the game.
But Beatriz identified that behavior as socially greedy and called it out. What is fascinating here is the differing paradigms through which they view the experience. Beatriz is operating under a sports paradigm.
A sports paradigm.
Yes. She views the villa as a competitive arena with unspoken rules of engagement. Melanie broke a rule, so Beatriz issued a penalty. Melanie, conversely, is operating under an emotional paradigm, internalizing the critique as a targeted attack on her character.
But Trinity made a vital point to Beatriz in that moment. Trinity reminded her that Melanie actually did offer an immediate apology. Melanie realized she overstepped, said, "my bad," and attempted to de-escalate.
Did she mean it, though?
That's not the point. Beatriz refused to accept the de-escalation. Beatriz was determined to force Melanie to verbally admit that her actions were calculated and deliberately selfish. It wasn't just about correcting the action, it was about forcing submission.
Because from Beatriz's perspective, the apology was entirely performative. Beatriz is highly perceptive. She refuses to allow someone to execute an aggressive, self-serving maneuver and then immediately retreat into the role of the victim when confronted.
I just think the phrasing was too much.
Yes, Beatriz's phrasing sounded like a corporate human resources manager issuing a formal reprimand, but the underlying principle was sound. You cannot intentionally trample on the social cohesion of the group and then cry when someone points out that you were wearing cleats.
Wearing cleats. Okay, I understand the logic, but it's Melanie's subsequent reaction that genuinely short-circuited my brain. This is where her emotional dysregulation leads to incredibly destructive behavior.
Ah, yes, the friend mode fiasco.
Yeah.
This was a psychological marvel.
It was staggering. Melanie leaves the makeup room, still highly emotional, and she pulls Sincere, the man she has been coupled up with since day one, the man she is actively building a romantic connection with.
Poor Sincere.
She sits him down and explicitly requests that he shift into friend mode.
I yelled at my screen.
She literally asks her romantic partner to act as her platonic confidant so she can vent about how physically attractive the new bombshell Corbin is. She's sitting there saying, Corbin is my exact type from top to bottom, while simultaneously complaining that the other women are angry at her for pursuing him.
And Sincere is just sitting there absorbing this, looking completely gutted.
Watching Sincere in that moment was like watching a man's soul temporarily evacuate his physical body. The cognitive dissonance of being asked to support the woman you like while she strategizes about another man is profound.
Think about the real-world equivalent of this.
Can you imagine going to a bar with your current boyfriend, aggressively flirting with a guy you just matched with on Tinder right in front of him, asking your boyfriend to hold your purse while you do it, and then coming back to complain to your boyfriend that the other women at the bar are giving you dirty looks?
It's unhinged.
The sheer, blinding lack of self-awareness Melanie displayed is breathtaking. She viewed Sincere purely as an emotional utility, completely disregarding his humanity.
It was a masterclass in narcissistic delusion. She wanted the emotional labor of a partner without the accountability. But this specific interaction is where Sincere proves himself to be arguably the most emotionally intelligent person in that environment.
He really did.
He did not yell. He did not become aggressive. He instituted an immediate, impenetrable boundary. He looked her directly in the eyes and stated, "We are in a connection. We are not friends."
Yes.
He utterly refused to be gaslit into the role of the enabling best friend.
His emotional regulation was incredible, and he communicates using these deeply profound, almost poetic analogies. He told her, when you pray for the rain, you got to deal with the mud.
He is operating like a stoic philosopher in a house full of chaos agents. But his analytical breakdown of her hypocrisy was brilliant.
Right, when he flipped the scenario.
Yes, to force empathy. He asked her, if the roles were reversed, and I was sitting here acting giddy and infatuated over a new girl right to your face, how would you react?
Yeah.
He forced her to confront her own double standard. And the fascinating part is, Melanie actually agreed.
She admitted she would be devastated and furious.
She acknowledged the hypocrisy, but it didn't change her behavior. She still wanted the external validation. She wanted the thrill of the new shiny object without having to forfeit the safety of her established relationship.
It is textbook reality television psychology, the maximization of desire with zero regard for consequence. And while Melanie is generating this localized chaos, we have to look at the macro-level destruction being caused by Corbin.
Oh, Corbin.
His 24-hour kissing spree requires a deep dive into the mechanics of manipulation.
Corbin's behavior is not just chaotic. It is highly systematic. He is operating with a specific, calculated methodology. He is essentially a walking, talking red flag dressed in exceptionally tailored clothing.
Let's break down the timeline. He pulls Kenzie away to the Soul Ties seating area. The environment is secluded. He initiates his routine. He asks Kenzie what her typical type is, and when she predictably answers, you, he looks at her, lowers his voice, and says, "For me, it's your eyes." And they immediately engage in a very heavy, passionate kiss.
We need to pause here and ruthlessly dissect this specific flirting mechanic. It is completely devoid of authentic romance. It feels meticulously rehearsed.
It felt so unnatural.
I call this corporate business flirting. He speaks to these women not like potential romantic partners, but like he is conducting a highly structured LinkedIn interview for an entry-level position.
Yes.
He relies on generic, universally applicable compliments like, "It's your eyes," that require zero actual observation or emotional investment. He even explicitly told Anaya later in the day that because he is in business, he requires a partner who can hold their own at corporate events.
Like she's a pro.
Exactly. He isn't looking for a connection. He is trying to cast a supporting role for his personal brand.
It is entirely transactional. He is looking for a return on his emotional investment, but the timeline is what makes it so egregious. Literally minutes. After making out with Kenzie and utilizing the eyes line, he pivots.
He wastes no time.
He pulls Kata. They go to the speakeasy area. He attempts to deploy a nearly identical conversational script, building the same false intimacy, and then he explicitly begs her for a kiss.
Not just a subtle lean-in.
No. He asks, is rejected, and proceeds to ask 2 more times.
The persistence is rooted in pure arrogance. But Kata's response was a triumph of self-worth. She brutally and systematically stonewalled him.
It was beautiful to watch.
She communicated a clear boundary. She required time and actual connection before escalating physical intimacy. And then she deployed the ultimate tactical question. She looked at him and asked, "Are you kissing the other girls in the villa?"
And he lies.
Straight to her face.
Without a fraction of a second of hesitation, he looks her directly in the eyes and says no. Corbin is operating in a closed environment equipped with night vision cameras and microphones. The delusion required to think that lie would hold up is staggering.
It was a fascinating moment of miscalculation. The instant he realized Kata was immune to his standard operational tactics and that she was demanding actual accountability, he abandoned the pursuit.
Just dropped it entirely.
He immediately pivoted his entire strategy back to Kenzie, because Kenzie had already demonstrated compliance. She was the path of least resistance.
Which leads us directly to the morning after on the dock, which is perhaps the most audacious display of manipulation I have ever seen. Corbin realizes he has a problem.
Because Kata, acting brilliantly, immediately unionized the women. She left the speakeasy, walked straight into the communal dressing room, and distributed the intelligence to the entire group.
Exactly. Kata functioned as a whistleblower. She blew up his entire covert operation. So Corbin, realizing the information is leaked, has to execute immediate damage control.
He's scrambling.
He pulls Kenzie to the dock and asks her, "Did the fact that I asked Kata for a kiss ruin our connection?"
The phrasing of that question is highly manipulative.
How so?
It places the burden of the ruined connection onto Kenzie's reaction, rather than his own initial betrayal. He's making her responsible for the outcome.
Wow. And then he feeds her this incredibly convoluted, poetic justification. He tells her that when the lights went out, he was stuck with his thoughts in bed alone, and he had an epiphany that he was moving too fast and that he only truly wanted her.
It is pure, unfiltered psychological manipulation. He did not experience a late-night moral awakening.
Obviously not.
He experienced the terrifying realization that his multifaceted strategy had been exposed on day one, and his social capital in the villa was plummeting. He needed to secure Kenzie to ensure his survival in the game. And the truly tragic aspect of this dynamic is that Kenzie, despite the overwhelming evidence, accepted his narrative.
Because she is operating from a place of deep insecurity. She explicitly stated in her confessional that she feels like a gazelle being hunted by a lion.
A lion.
And when you look at it, she isn't being hunted by a majestic lion. She's being cornered by a highly opportunistic hyena wearing a business suit.
That is exactly what he is.
The instinct should be to flee, but instead she submits to the predator because she thinks it guarantees her safety.
It is an exhausting cycle to witness. But if we pull back and look at the broader ecosystem of the villa, it wasn't entirely toxic. Amidst the chaos of Corbin's manipulation and Melanie's emotional dysregulation, there were 2 distinct interactions that showcased genuine, profound human connection.
Yes, I want to explore these moments deeply because they offer a necessary contrast. Let's look at the theme of sisterhood and affirmation. The most surprising development was the reconciliation between Beatriz and Melanie.
This was a remarkably mature de-escalation. After the intense hostility of the previous night, they actively chose to sit down and communicate. And what emerged from that conversation was a deeply vulnerable admission from Beatriz.
It was so unexpected.
She articulated this immense, suffocating pressure she feels to cosplay a softer, hyper-feminine version of herself in order to be deemed desirable by men in this environment.
That specific admission was genuinely heartbreaking. We're looking at Beatriz, who is a highly decorative Paralympic athlete. Her identity is built on physical strength, resilience, and fierce competition. She revealed that her parents socialized her to never show weakness, to never cry, because they warned her that the world would use her tears against her. So she looks at Melanie, who is incredibly fluid with her emotions, crying openly in the makeup room. And instead of anger, Beatriz is actually experiencing a profound sense of envy.
Envy of her vulnerability.
Yes. She is envious of Melanie's freedom to simply exist and feel things without the burden of having to appear perpetually strong.
It is a brilliant distillation of the societal expectations placed on women, particularly athletic women. Beatriz recognizes that her natural state, loud, energetic, physically dominant, does not align with the narrow, soft archetype of femininity that is traditionally rewarded on dating shows.
It's so unfair.
She feels she has to shrink her personality to expand her dating pool. The way Melanie responded to this was arguably her best moment in the show.
Melanie was phenomenal in this exchange. She didn't offer toxic positivity. She looked at Beatriz and fiercely validated her exact presentation. Melanie told her that the men who only want a soft, pretty aesthetic are ultimately boring, and that Beatriz's strength is inherently feminine.
She reframed it completely.
She redefined femininity for her, basically saying, your femininity is powerful, it is athletic, and that is a superpower, not a deficit. It is incredibly rare to see two women deconstruct the monolith of conventional beauty standards on a television show that literally profits off of those exact standards.
It grounded the entire narrative. It demonstrated that beneath the superficial arguments about who interrupted a conversation, these individuals are grappling with deep foundational insecurities regarding their worth and desirability.
And speaking of foundational desirability, we have to transition to the conversation between Casey and Ania, which was, without a doubt, a masterclass in how to affirm a partner.
The cowboy hat chat.
Yes. We have Casey, casually wearing a cowboy hat, delivering one of the most profound, socially aware speeches I have ever seen in this genre.
He essentially delivered an academic thesis on the sociology of attraction, but made it incredibly romantic.
Literally.
He directly addressed the reality of colorism. He looked at Anaya and acknowledged that society disproportionately places negative connotations and unfair burdens on darker-skinned women. He didn't shy away from the cultural context of her existence. And then, he explicitly and powerfully affirmed her by stating, "You are the blueprint."
I was genuinely moved to tears watching that segment. As a viewer, it is so profoundly rare to see a dark-skinned Black woman not just called beautiful in a generic sense, but to be affirmed so specifically, respectfully, and loudly on a massive platform.
It never happens.
He didn't ignore her reality. He recognized her specific lived experience, acknowledged the societal hurdles, and elevated her above them.
If you analyze the historical data of reality dating shows, that level of explicit, sociologically aware validation is virtually non-existent. Darker-skinned women are frequently marginalized or positioned as secondary options. By directly naming the dynamic and rejecting it, Casey demonstrated an elite level of emotional intelligence.
Elite.
He understands that making someone feel truly seen within the context of their identity is infinitely more romantic than Corbin's rehearsed, algorithmic compliments about eye color.
It was top-tier human behavior. It was the absolute pinnacle of the episode. But of course, the emotional safety of that moment was immediately shattered by the mechanics of the game itself, the recoupling twist, and the subsequent dumping of Sean.
Ah, yes. The psychological tension during a recoupling ceremony is always high, but the introduction of an asymmetrical power dynamic completely destabilized the group.
The Islanders are gathered around the fire pit. The established rules dictate a standard girls' choice recoupling. Because of the gender ratio, one boy is mathematically guaranteed to be eliminated.
Standard procedure.
But then Ariana Madix introduces a critical variable. Corbin received a secret text granting him the unilateral power to select his partner before anyone else.
This is a classic producer manipulation designed to maximize collateral damage.
Corbin, acting as the human wrecking ball he is, immediately selects Tenzi. This forces the remaining women to scramble and reevaluate their positions. The ripple effect is instantaneous.
Everyone is panic-picking.
Exactly. Melanie predictably saves Sincere. Anaya joyfully selects Casey. Kata strategically picks Zach. Beatriz remains loyal to Gabriel. And Trinity selects Bryce.
And the outcome of this cascading selection process leaves Sean, the 29-year-old police officer and single father, standing entirely alone. Under the strict parameters of the environment, his isolation results in immediate ejection from the villa.
Now, I have to ask you, and I want everyone listening to genuinely think about this too. Do you actually feel any sympathy for Sean?
Sympathy.
Because the way I view it, Sean's elimination was entirely self-inflicted. It is like watching a man voluntarily sign up to run a competitive marathon, but he shows up to the starting line wearing flip-flops.
That is a harsh but accurate visual.
He stands there, he smiles at the crowd, he is perfectly pleasant, but when the starting gun fires, he makes absolutely no effort to run. He didn't initiate conversations, he didn't attempt to flirt. He essentially just stood in the background hoping that a profound romantic connection would spontaneously materialize out of thin air.
This brings up a critical analysis of how passivity is punished in a gamified mating market. Sean exhibited zero strategic initiative. He allocated all of his initial effort toward Beatriz on day one. When Gabriel successfully outmaneuvered him and secured Beatriz, Sean completely shut down.
He gave up.
Instead of pivoting and actively pursuing Trinity or Kenzie, he adopted a paternal background role. He became the nice guy who hovers around the kitchen. In a highly competitive, time-compressed environment, passivity is a fatal flaw. He orchestrated his own demise through inaction.
He absolutely did. You cannot rely on the nice guy trope in a space designed for active pursuit. But I will admit, his final exit interview broke my heart just a little bit.
What did he say?
When he looked at the camera and said, maybe someday someone would say those things about me, referencing the romantic speeches he had just listened to at the fire pit, it was a gut punch.
It was a very stark, humanizing moment. He took a massive vulnerability risk by entering this hyper-visible environment, and he was fundamentally rejected by it. He is returning to his normal life and his son with his ego severely bruised.
Totally.
However, from a purely analytical television production standpoint, he was dead weight. The ecosystem of the villa requires constant friction and momentum to survive, and Sean was entirely stationary.
Stationary Sean. We genuinely wish him the best in the real world. But now that we have mapped out the narrative, it is time to pivot into our final analysis phase. We need to formalize our judgments, analyze the power rankings, and forecast the future. Segment 1, couple check-in.
Let's start by evaluating the structural integrity of the existing pairings. If we look at the current landscape, who demonstrates actual sustainable staying power? Strongest couple.
I am fiercely, unequivocally advocating for Casey and Ania. And this isn't just based on the emotional high of their conversation, it is based on the foundational elements they demonstrated.
Which are?
They possess clear, open communication. They have undeniable physical chemistry. And most importantly, Casey has created an environment of profound emotional safety for Ania. When you combine communication, attraction, and safety, you have the holy trinity of a resilient relationship, whether on television or in reality.
I agree that their foundation is exceptionally strong. But if we are discussing true resilience against external threats, my analysis points to Beatriz and Gabriel.
Wait, really? That is a bold choice. What is your underlying rationale for that?
It comes down to Beatriz's psychological framing. Yes, their physical chemistry is palpable, but it is Beatriz's absolute refusal to operate from a place of insecurity that makes them formidable.
Okay, I'm listening.
Consider the moment Gabriel informed her he intended to explore a conversation with Kenzie. A typical contestant would have spiraled into jealousy or attempted to manipulate him into staying. Beatriz didn't either.
She just let him go.
She maintained her baseline. She essentially told him, "You are free to explore your options, but I know my value and I do not chase." That level of supreme internal security means they are not suffocating each other. They operate as two independent variables choosing to align, which means they are structurally equipped to survive the inevitable introduction of new bombshells without their foundation cracking.
That is a very compelling argument. Independence as a form of relationship security.
Okay, let's pivot to the opposite end of the spectrum. Biggest red flag in the villa.
Unanimously, it is Corbin. There is no counter-argument to be made.
None whatsoever. But we need to articulate exactly why he is so dangerous, because it goes beyond simply being a standard player.
Exactly. A standard player is obvious. Corbin is insidious because of his mechanics. He operates by weaponizing intimacy. He isolates women and uses language specifically designed to manufacture a false sense of exclusivity.
Like the I comment? Right. When he says things like, "I want to be reminded of your kiss," or "I am stuck with my thoughts about you," he is projecting a highly intense, microscopic focus onto that specific woman. He creates a temporary psychological bubble where she feels like the only variable that matters.
And it feels so good to be in that bubble.
But the danger is that he is actively, simultaneously maintaining 3 or 4 identical bubbles with other women. It is a highly manipulative strategy designed to maximize his personal options and screen time while entirely minimizing his emotional accountability.
And it is terrifying, precisely because the strategy is highly effective. If you do not have external data like CADA providing the dressing room intel, you have no way of knowing you are inside a manufactured bubble. Kenzie bought into the illusion completely.
Until the illusion shatters, which brings us to a much more positive dynamic, unexpected chemistry.
Trinity and Bryce. This pairing completely blindsided me. On paper, they make absolutely no sense, but they have this incredibly fascinating, vulnerable conversation about their formative years. Bryce, who generally presents as a somewhat vapid, highly attractive golden retriever of human, admitted that he was actually bullied growing up simply for being too pretty.
The struggles of the exceptionally gorgeous.
Right. But Trinity reciprocated by discussing her feelings of inadequacy, feeling like an ugly duckling because her body type didn't align with the specific beauty standards celebrated in her community. And then Bryce looks at this highly analytical, guarded woman and softly calls her a doll face.
What is occurring there is trauma bonding on a micro level. They're connecting over the shared isolating experience of physical insecurity. Bryce may lack sophisticated conversational game, but his earnestness acts as a perfect counterbalance to Trinity's highly analytical, defensive posture.
It really works.
It is an unorthodox pairing, but the psychological puzzle pieces fit together surprisingly well.
They really do. Right. The final category for our behavioral check-in. Most chaotic islander. And the empirical data points overwhelmingly to Melanie.
There is zero contest. The variance in her emotional state is unprecedented.
But I want to push back on the framing here. I don't believe Melanie is generating chaos maliciously or simply for the sake of drama. I have a psychological theory.
Let's hear it.
I believe Melanie is operating entirely out of a severe scarcity mindset. In behavioral economics, a scarcity mindset occurs when you perceive a lack of resources, in this case, time, attention, and security, and it causes your brain to tunnel vision on immediate survival, entirely ignoring long-term consequences.
That makes sense.
She is terrified of losing her status in the villa, she is terrified of losing control over Sincere, and she is simultaneously terrified that if she doesn't explore Corbin, she is missing out on a superior option. When your brain operates from scarcity, every single minor event is processed as an existential emergency. Pulling Corbin was an emergency. Crying in the makeup room was an emergency.
Your application of the scarcity mindset is theoretically sound. But if we evaluate the practical output, the intent does not mitigate the damage.
Fair.
Whether the wind is generated by a scarcity mindset or malice, the resulting tornado still destroys the house. You cannot sit there frantically biting your finger while staring at a new man in front of your partner, completely dysregulate the social environment, demand your partner act as your therapist to process the fallout, and then claim victimhood. She is a walking behavioral hazard.
Reasons for the win, but destroying the house. That is a profound summarization. Let's move to segment 2, Villa T. Biggest gossip. The award for strategic information distribution.
That belongs entirely to Kata.
Yes. Kata, recognizing Corbin's deception, immediately exiting the speakeasy, marching directly into the communal girls' dressing room, and loudly broadcasting the fact that Corbin begged her for a kiss 3 consecutive times.
A hero.
I have immense respect for Kata in that moment. She did not hoard the information to feel powerful or use it to quietly manipulate Corbin. She immediately unionized the women. She distributed critical intelligence to protect the collective from a predatory strategy.
It was a flawlessly executed tactical strike. She dismantled Corbin's entire covert infrastructure in less than 5 minutes. It was brilliant. Now, regarding the funniest moment, or rather, the most absurd coping mechanism.
Oh, without a doubt, the impromptu morning meditation and stretching class led by Kenzie and Ania.
It was the zenith of absurdity. You have Kenzie sitting cross-legged in the synthetic grass, earnestly instructing the group to engage in alkaline breathing, to process the trauma of the previous night's argument.
I was crying laughing.
What, physiologically speaking, is alkaline breathing? You are inhaling standard atmospheric oxygen, Kenzie. You are not fundamentally altering the pH balance of your bloodstream through deep breaths.
And then transitioning into stretching the groin area to release emotional stress. It was pseudoscientific nonsense. But given the sheer toxicity of the environment, I suppose engaging in collective physical absurdity is a valid way to discharge nervous energy.
It was high camp disguised as wellness. And speaking of high camp, we must acknowledge the best one-liner.
Beatriz, looking deadpan into the confessional camera and stating, "I don't chase nothing but medals, baby."
That is not just a quote. It is an entirely new psychological framework. I am officially adopting it as my universal response to any minor inconvenience or rejection in the dating market.
I love that.
If a man cancels a date due to work stress, I don't chase nothing but medals, baby. If someone leaves a text message unread, I don't chase nothing but medals. It is the ultimate assertion of intrinsic value.
It is a lifestyle brand in a single sentence. And most delusional behavior goes to Corbin, thinking he could kiss the entire villa in 24 hours and keep it a secret in a house where everyone sleeps 3 feet apart.
Delusion.
Now, let's get judicial. Segment 3. Shady, snarky, or stupid. We need to formally sentence 3 highly questionable moments from this week. We are evaluating intent.
Let's begin with Exhibit A, Kenzie's physical performance during the challenge. She executed a full, aggressive split directly in front of Gabriel to secure his attention, but then actively refused to perform any dance routine for Zach, the man she was technically partnered with at the time. What is the verdict?
I'm going to rule this as snarky.
Snarky.
Yes. I am looking at the underlying motivation. Kenzie was feeling deeply insecure, and she used physical dominance, the splits, to mark her territory with Gabriel, with whom she had palpable chemistry. It was a physical manifestation of competitive anxiety. It was snarky, but in a hypersexualized marketplace, it was an effective way to establish dominance.
I am completely overruling your assessment. The verdict is undeniably stupid, bordering on sociopathic cruelty.
Sociopathic cruelty.
You can signal availability and mark your territory with Gabriel without completely humiliating Zach in front of the entire collective. By actively refusing to participate with Zach, she inflicted a massive public blow to his ego. It demonstrated a profound lack of empathy and social intelligence.
Okay, I see your point regarding the collateral damage. Poor Zach. Exhibit B, Beatriz telling Melanie to correct her behavior.
This is unequivocally shady, and it is a masterpiece of shade. The specific phrasing, correct your behavior, strips away all emotional warmth. It is cold, corporate, and patronizing. It wasn't an argument. It was a verbal performance review delivered to a subordinate.
It was a write-up, but that is exactly why I think it was highly counterproductive. It was incredibly condescending for a peer-to-peer conversation. You cannot speak to another adult woman as if she is a disobedient toddler acting out in a sandbox and expect a positive resolution.
It wasn't about resolution.
Exactly. If her actual goal was to resolve the conflict, it was terrible communication. But if her goal was to establish a hierarchy, it was, as you said, a legendary shade. Exhibit C, Sean waiting until after a new bombshell arrives when his safety is mathematically threatened, to finally tell Trinity he is interested in exploring a connection with her.
This is unanimously, painfully stupid.
100% stupid.
It is a failure of basic evolutionary strategy.
We are in complete agreement. Sean essentially acted like a passive observer for days. He only initiated a survival mechanism grafting on Trinity when he saw the Grim Reaper standing at the door of the villa. You cannot wait for the 2-minute warning of the game to suddenly decide you want to play. His lack of foresight is the exact reason he was eliminated.
It was the desperate execution of a non-existent strategy. Now, moving to segment 4, Casa Crystal Ball. As we look to the horizon, we must deploy our predictive models.
Yes. The teaser for the next phase revealed 3 new bombshells: Kayla, Saul, and Jen entering the ecosystem. This represents a massive injection of new variables. How does the structure change? Predict who couples up.
Well, I predict...
Wait, I have to go first on this one. I predict an immediate structural failure for Beatriz and Gabriel. I believe Gabriel operates almost entirely on novelty and lust. He is easily distracted by shiny new objects. The instant one of these new women, particularly Jen, gives him validation, his head will turn, completely abandoning the security Beatriz offers. He lacks impulse control.
That is a highly probable outcome. My prediction focuses on the next elimination. Who gets dumped? Zach.
Zach again?
Zach's position in the villa is entirely fraudulent. Kate is utilizing him strictly as a placeholder, a human shield to survive the eliminations until a man who actually meets her specific criteria arrives. The absolute second one of these new men demonstrates interest in Kata. Zach will be discarded and left standing alone by the fire pit, mirroring Sean's exact fate.
Zach is in critical danger. Okay, who do we assess is running the most deceptive covert operation? Who is secretly playing a game entirely divorced from romance?
We both know the empirical data points to one man.
Corbin.
Corbin is not on a dating show. Corbin is attending a highly televised corporate networking retreat.
Clearly.
He views every interaction purely through the lens of audience engagement and brand maximization. He's attempting to build a portfolio of dramatic moments to secure future influencer sponsorships. He does not want a romantic partner. He wants an Instagram verification badge and an apparel deal.
He is collecting screen time like infinity stones. It is exhausting to witness. Okay, time for our final unhinged behavioral predictions. Give me your most radical forecast.
My radical prediction involves our Stoic philosopher, Sincere.
Oh, this should be good.
I hypothesize that he will eventually reach a critical mass of psychological exhaustion. Melanie's perpetual chaos, her constant stress testing of his loyalty, and her overwhelming scarcity mindset will completely deplete his emotional reserve.
Yeah, he's going to crack.
He will realize that the environment is fundamentally toxic to his well-being, and he will execute a voluntary self-eviction. He will actively choose peace over the game and walk out the front door.
A voluntary self-eviction. That would be an unprecedented disruption of the show's format, but entirely consistent with his character.
What's your unhinged prediction?
My unhinged prediction centers on Kenzie. I believe her loyalty to Corbin is entirely fear-based. Corbin believes he has successfully manipulated her into submission, but Kenzie is a massive flight risk.
You think she'll jump ship?
The absolute second a new dominant male enters the villa and offers her a safer harbor, she will instantly abandon Corbin. This defection will shatter Corbin's ego and spark a massive villa-wide conflict over the concept of loyalty, ultimately destroying the social fabric of half the existing couples.
That would be a spectacular chain reaction of consequences. We will have to monitor the data as it unfolds.
We absolutely will. And with that, we have reached the conclusion of our analysis. I want to turn the focus entirely to you guys, the Snark Squad, sitting there processing all of this human absurdity with us. Are you managing to survive the psychological warfare of this Monday? Have you poured that second margarita to aid in your own character development yet?
We need to contextualize this against your own lived experiences. When you look at the mechanics of deception we discussed today, what is the absolute worst dating app experience you have ever had?
Let us know in the comments.
Have you ever found yourself tangled in the algorithmic web of a catfish, staring at a ceiling and wondering who you are actually talking to?
Or do you suffer from my specific brand of hypervigilance? Do you finally encounter a perfectly kind, normal human being and immediately begin searching for the hidden trapdoor? Has the gamification of modern romance completely destroyed your ability to trust a green flag? And given the sheer chaos we just mapped out, who are you actually rooting for to survive the pressure cooker of the villa right now?
I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought to analyze as you navigate your own life this week.
Hit 'em with it.
We spent a significant amount of time breaking down Corbin's methodology and his blatant deceptions. Consider this. If a man like Corbin is willing to look a woman in the eyes and completely lie about an event that occurred mere minutes ago, a lie that can be instantly disproven in a confined space of 12 people while surrounded by hundreds of high-definition cameras broadcasting his actions to millions, what do you think these men are willing to lie to you about on Hinge?
Oof. A pristine designer bag sitting in a dumpster. Trust nothing. Question everything. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with your absolute messiest reality TV-obsessed friend.
Keep analyzing the chaos.
Stay flirty, stay messy, and we'll see you on the Snark side.